Hello and welcome back to the Hardwood Hoops podcast. This is episode 49. I'm your host, Liam Horsley, and I'm joined for a second time this week by Ben Jones. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, it's very good. It's like good old times, back in a lockdown twice a week. Here we go.
yeah, that is very much like how we started. Kind of a year on, still being locked down, still doing NBA podcasts with games being called off. Seems a bit weird, but that's the world we live in, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we just gotta roll with the punches. At least we're getting some basketball still, and nobody's sort of getting really ill from it or anything.
Yeah, definitely. And this week we've got, on Monday, it's Martin Luther King Day in the States, so we've got some really UK-friendly basketball times again, which is nice because it's their public holiday. So we've got a good couple of days of basketball ahead of us. We've had a good week of basketball as well. More games called off than the last couple of podcasts we've done, but still some really good games and some good team performances for us to get stuck into. We've had a good kind of feedback from our James Harden trade that we covered it in good detail from all areas and spoke about the Cavs and Pacers quite well compared to most pods, which was nice to hear. Have you kind of settled down a little bit now after that huge news and got back into the games, or are you still kind of reeling from that big trade?
I'm just still waiting to see how it all goes, and I want to see him take to the court and get a couple of games under his belt, see if Kyrie comes back. There's still so much up in the air about it. I know the Cavs have played already, but neither of the new additions have played yet. But Drummond put a marker down. He knows a new centre's in his backyard.
Yes, so, the famous Drummond he's actually becoming a podcast hero at the moment. We talk about it a lot. I like it.
Big line, 33 and 23 with 3 blocks.
How many dribble handoffs? 0 or
big goose egg? Yeah.
Yeah, we love a bit of Drummond. He might come up in a segment in a minute, actually. In terms of James Harden as well, the Nets have kind of said that he'll play and start with the team as soon as he's allowed to. The league trade still has to be finalised with league office. And I think there's some COVID protocols they've got to double check over because you have to fly from one team to the other. So maybe we'll see him on Monday against, I think they're playing Monday, or Tuesday against the Bucks. And maybe we'll see him in that game, but I'm sure we'll see him on the court soon. Before we move on to our usual segments, I wanted to ask you a question, actually, on the line of trades. Who do you think could be the next star to be traded? I know we've spoken about a couple of players over the last week or two, but if you had to pick one player out, who would your kind of star man be that you think could move this season?
It's got to be Bradley Beal, isn't it? Look at the team he's on at the moment. Absolute bonfire of a team. And it has been the past couple of years. He has been massively underrated because of the franchise that he's with and their constant losing record. And I think he's got to get out of there, even if he's requested it. The Wizards don't want to trade him because he is an incredible player. Of course they don't. But they're going to have to, I think, to keep him happy. Otherwise, they're just going to lose him for nothing when his contract's up.
And if he is set to be traded at some point this season or next off-season, what sort of package? First question, what sort of package do you think and what sort of teams would be interested? Do you think it would get to 8 picks like Harden, or is he a step below that with his pedigree? And maybe they would get him for a little bit less.
I can see 6 picks going, I think. Maybe not quite 8. Every team's going to put in an offer for him, even the Nets. I think they'd probably offer the rest of their roster for him and just play with 4 players. But if I'm looking realistically, I feel like it's going to be a team that's almost there, but needs something to sort of just push them over the edge. So your fringe teams, the ones that I'm looking at were the Heat, maybe the Nuggets, maybe the Jazz. Yeah. Those kind of teams that are almost there, sort of 5th place in their conference and giving teams a real good go, but can't quite get over the top.
Yeah, I think they're good, all good options. I think the Nuggets especially are a team that I can really see making a move like that. I'd say the Mavs probably up there as well, and it wouldn't shock me if the Warriors tried to give it a go, but I know the Mavs have got that cap space they're saving for Giannis for next season. They're going to try and fill someone with that. But we'll have to wait and see. Another player for me, because I didn't want to give the same answer as you, I was toying between 2. I was toying between Mr. Drummond, because I think now Allen's arrived. We spoke about it in the previous podcast, didn't we, that we think Drummond could be moved on. And there's teams like the Mavs, like the Warriors, that have all been rumoured because they need a centre. But I'm not sure about him. I think he gets paid a lot of money, and then he's a free agent, so it could be a bit of a tricky one. So I decided to go with Zach LaVine from the Bulls. Another team that, they're struggling a bit. He's a high scorer. He's played a lot of minutes on bad teams, and I think he's the sort of perfect third option for a good team. I think a team like the 76ers, a team like the Mavs, a team like the Nuggets I had written down, same as you, a team like the Heat, if they want to get that extra star who's not quite the level of a Beard or a Harden, but you want to pair him with two other stars and not lose someone. I think that even though he's on a huge deal, you'll have to match the salary. I think he's the sort of player that we could see move. And I think they're the sort of team that could move him. Because he's not quite Beal level, so the fan base aren't going to go completely nuts. But if you can get loads of picks for someone who's never really going to probably be a number one on a team, I think it could help the Bulls long term, and I think it could help Zach LaVine's career. So that's the sort of player I see moving. Any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I like that. I think the only thing that would trip this trade up is Zach LaVine being the third option. I think he secretly loves being number one option on the Bulls team, and when it goes somewhere else, his ego is going to have to deflate quite quickly and quite a lot. Because I was going to say bigly, but that's not a word. But
you should have said it. I've said worse words.
Because that's realistically where he's at. Maybe I'll push a second option, but he's not your franchise player, is he? But at the moment, I feel like he is. I wonder if he'll be able to adjust.
Well, he's third in the league in the moment in total field goals, sixth in the league in total field goals attempt, third in the league in total 3 points attempt. So safe to say he likes to shoot a lot. By the way, your mate, Mr. LeBron James, leads the league in field goals and field goals attempted, which surprised me. I was shocked by that. I thought a bit more facilitator. He hasn't had many 35-plus point nights, but consistently getting them shots up.
Yeah, gotta get them shots. It does surprise me as well, to be fair.
Shots up.
It surprises me as well.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Zach's up there, but yeah, they're two players that I think we could see moved on. There are also two players that might break into an Eastern Conference All-Star team that maybe in the next couple of weeks or so we'll start looking at that sort of side of things. But let's move on then from the Harden trade and some future trades and go on to our weekly segment of winners and losers. We're going to do 3 winners, 3 losers each. And as always, mate, I'd like you to start us off. So why don't we go on a positive note and start with your first winner?
I feel like we need a theme tune for this. Winners and losers. I don't know.
There we go.
Something like
that. There's the theme tune, sort
of. My first winner, it's probably maybe a bit too mainstream for most people, but it's the Lakers. We haven't talked about them in a while. You've just mentioned his name, and there's a big highlight we need to talk about. And that
I haven't seen this highlight.
How have you not seen it? It's incredible. This 3, a little pump fake. Defender goes at him.
I've seen that.
There you go. Hits the 3, turns around, looking at the bench as it's in the air, and the bench go crazy, and he runs off and does his thing. Also, a huge block by Anthony Davis when they're playing the Rockets, and he just stares down. I can't remember who it was that went for the shot, and he just stares down at him like, why did you even try that? Who do you think you are? Do you not know who I am? It's been a really good series of games for them. They're playing really, really well at the moment, playing really efficiently. So their first game this week from Sunday, they won 120-102 over the Rockets on Sunday. They won against the Rockets again, 117-100. And then they played OKC and won 128-99. So they've been dispatching teams pretty handily this week.
Yeah, they were first on my list as well, actually. The only thing differently I written down was that in general, they're on the longest winning streak in the league, which is something I like to look at just because it shows really good form. Yes, they haven't had the hardest run of games, like you just said then, but you can only beat what's in front of you in the NBA, and a lot of these good teams do have those nights where a smaller team will just come and beat them due to lack of effort, really, lack of focus. But that doesn't happen really with this Lakers team, which I think is a big positive. They sit top of the West as expected, 11-3. They had a bit of a slow start, didn't they? They were like middling of the West for the first 10 days, And now I think the West is really rounding out into some sort of shape. At least the East is still a little bit nuts, but the West I think is kind of rounding out a bit. And you've got Lakers and Clippers 1-2 in there at the moment, and I think the Lakers have probably been the best team the last probably 2 weeks, and I don't see that changing. I think we both had the number one seed in the West, and I think they'll just go from strength to strength and take it to the playoffs and roll from there.
What's impressed me the most about them, though, is the team basketball they're managing to play, and I think that's why they were middling at the start. They're still trying to get used to this roster and the way they're playing and who's getting what minutes, who's getting what shots. You're looking at the team. I mean, last game, for example, you've got 6 players in double figures. Schroeder with 14, LeBron with 26, Davis with 18, Contavious Caldwell-Pope 10, Montrezl Harrell 21, Markieff Morris 11. And even on the fringes of that, you've got Caruso with 6, Kuzma with 7, Horton Tucker off the bench playing really, really well, played well in the preseason stuff. Everybody contributed really, really nicely to this roster. So they seem to have built something quite nice, at least for the regular season. We'll see how long it holds out for.
Yeah, and going back to that team basketball sort of mantra, they sit 11th in the league in total assists per game at 26, but in the last 3 games, they're averaging 28, which would take them more into like the top 4. So the last 3 games and the last 5 games, they've even upped those assists even more. So they're playing good team basketball, and maybe those new additions have bedded in a little bit. Why don't you? So we've done one each there. So why don't you give us your next one? See if it matches my number 2.
Again, going with another mainstreamy team, but maybe one that doesn't get enough credit. We say every time we talk about them, but I'm going to mention the Milwaukee Bucks.
Nice. Not the same as me, so that's good. It's one different.
Again, playing really, really good basketball, and as much as this is going to pain you, they had a really nice win last night, or whenever it was, the other night against the Mavericks.
Yeah, last night. I watched it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, the Mavs played well. It was nice to see Porzingis back, but Giannis looked too good. Nice little step back 3 from him as well. Middleton played pretty well, it seemed. And Drew Holiday's really settled into that team, and they're starting to find their own rhythm and style. But we do know they are a great regular season team.
Yeah,
Can this fall through to the playoffs this year?
Their bench is bad. If we see a Bucks Nets playoff game, they need to hope the buyout market's strong, because both their benches are awful. Every time they have to take Middleton and Giannis out, the Mavs are just like, right, let's go, let's score some points, because they can't keep up. Because they're bringing on people like Bobby Portis and Giannis's brother, and DJ Augustine, I think, played like 22 minutes. And those 2 guys, if they don't score high, then they're struggling. I think they need to try and improve that bench unit offensively if they can. Because Mr. Bobby Portis is not the one. But yeah, it was a good performance from Middleton, especially because he hit more clutch shots. Giannis got a lot of the looks. Mavs defense was pretty poor, to be honest, at times in that game in the paint, whereas Middleton was hitting some tough shots. So I was really, really impressed with him. And he's a player that we always say that he needs to step up, or else they're not going to have enough points, are they, between their starting 5 for them to win games.
Yeah, that's it. Brook Lopez is ticking along nicely for them as well. So that's really, really good to see. And they're just playing efficient basketball like they were last year and the year before. They are, second in the league at the moment in their offensive rating, 8th defensively, and second in their win-loss ratio at the moment overall. So they're just ticking over nicely, and I think they deserve a little bit of a mention, because we haven't spoken about them in a while. Since Giannis signed that contract, everybody seems to have stopped caring about the Bucks again.
Yeah, they had a couple of bad losses on TV, didn't they? But now, like that next game that we spoke about, they lost to Celtics in the first game, but now they're really ticking on. Just a note to the Mavs coach, Rick Carlisle, please call a timeout next time when we get a rebound with 4 seconds left so Luka could take a shot, because we had Porzingis.
What was he thinking?
I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking, to be honest. Luka didn't have either of the any of the 3 last shots in the offense, so that's not quite how you want to end the game. But hey ho, move on. That's not great. So my next winner is another team that we probably haven't spoken about much this season. Is the Indiana Pacers. So my notes say 2-win streak, which isn't much, but overall they've ticked along nicely. And every time they've lost a game, they've come back and won the next one. but also the fact they've added Karis LeVert for me that we spoke about in the last podcast. I had to kind of
Yes.
include that because I just think as a franchise that's a winning week if you can add a player like that to the long term, settle the future down for the starting five. And overall, they're still fourth in the East, 8-4, really ticking on nicely, better than kind of me and you both thought. Assist-wise, they're very high as well. They're just below the Lakers. Just above where the Lakers have been in the last 3 games. They're 6th throughout the season. Their offensive rating, I think, was 5th in the league. And rebounding, as you'd expect with Sabonis and Turner, that they're accelerating. So for me, I think the Pacers are a little bit a team that we don't talk about as much, so I want to give them some love. Very impressive. And they've got a huge week this week with some big games coming up.
I said it at the beginning of the season when we did our standings for the East and the West. I just don't know how they keep doing this. Like you look at the team and it's good. It's a solid team, but I know Sabonis is really good, but to look at, there's no standout players, really. But they just work so well together. The team basketball was amazing.
No superstars might be a kinder way to word it because they got a very good starting five.
Yeah, but all right. No superstars then.
Well, the next 3 games will be interesting because they've got the Clippers, Mavs, and Magic. And the Magic are a team that kind of always do well against those good teams in the East and kind of shock a few wins out. So I think those next 3 games will kind of tell us even more about them. If they can go and win against the Clippers and the Mavs in the next 2, they're just going to be in an even stronger position. So I'm interested to watch them myself when they play the Mavs and get a better look at them. But you can't fault their start to the season. So let's move on then to your last winner of the week.
Yeah, okay. This one might take some talking around, but again, it's a team we haven't spoken about much this week. But I wanted to give them a mention. It's just unfortunate they went to play 3 games this week, but one of them got cancelled. And that's the Utah Jazz.
They're on my list as well.
Look at that. Yeah, Utah, again, just behind the scenes, just been playing very nice basketball recently and been eking out a couple of nice wins. What I have noticed, though, it's usually, as we said in the playoffs, the games where Rudy Gobert really gets stuck in and gets involved are the games where they really take off as a team. And Donovan Mitchell is probably sort of 2/3 consistent. You have 2 really good games and 1 a bit quieter. I mean, they haven't had a difficult run of games particularly recently, but like we said, you've got to win them, regardless of where you are. They're 6-4 at the moment, so they're close to that sort of mid-range at the moment. But a 96-86 over the Pistons.
8-4, you mean?
Oh, 8-4. Sorry, yeah. So yeah, I wanted to show some love to the Utah Jazz and the way they're playing at the moment. I'm a really big fan as well of Donovan Mitchell and the way he plays. I think he's very athletic and really good at getting to the rim, but he's really developed that outside shot recently in the sort of the past year or 2, and it's showing because they can spread the floor a bit more. This season, they seem to have got used to having Mike Conley, and he's been a bit more consistent. It just seems to be clicking for them at the moment, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, similar to what I said with the Lakers, if you just look at the winning streak, I know it stretches over longer than the week, but they're on a 4-game winning streak, sitting 8-4. Yes, they've had a game or 2, I think, called off, but the games they played, they've won. And if you're a Western Conference team, you've got to win those road games in the East because I just think that they're a lot easier than your standard Western Conference matchups. And this is the sort of thing that a team like the Mavs and Nuggets can struggle with. They can go away to these Eastern Conference teams and lose against a team they shouldn't, whereas the Jazz seem to be very consistent and winning the games they should win. And maybe their issue is not winning the more difficult games, but consistency-wise, they always seem to do well against the Eastern Conference, and that's kind of continued. So, yeah, I agree with everything you've said. Gobert started pretty well this season after that contract extension, which is good for any Jazz fans. And I think they'll be a playoff-bound team for sure. I just don't think there's any way they won't finish there. So.
And they also held Trae Young to a 9% field goal percentage.
Yeah, Trae Young has had some Shocking. He's not. I haven't got him on any of my talking points for this podcast, but if he has another bad week next week, he will be brought up because he has had a 0.9 and 9% shooting percentage now. I think he's had a 12% from three as well. And this is supposed to be the future of the franchise. So yeah, we won't talk about him now unless he's on your losers list, but we'll see. I'll kick us off with going on to our losers. Then I'll kick us off with my first one. Interested to see if you've got them in yours. It's the Pelicans. 5-game losing streak. I think they sit 14th. Is that right? Yeah, 14th in the Western Conference, which is a lot lower than they want to be. So they're 4-7 at the moment. They really, really struggle consistency-wise to shoot the basketball. Their spacing's not been good, and their defense has been better, but still a little bit kind of to be desired with. And I'd just be a little bit worried about what they're doing at the moment. They've got loads of draft picks, but they've got loads of veterans now, and it's like, what are you doing? Are you tanking? Are you rebuilding? Or are you trying to go for it now because you've extended Steven Adams, you've signed Bledsoe, and I'd just be a little bit. I'm confused to the way they're going at the moment, and the 5-game loser streak is not a good place for them. So they were my kind of first loser of the week.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to delete them off my list. They're on my list as well.
What are your thoughts? Why are they losing then? Is it offense? Is it team setup? Is it defense? What's your kind of feelings on why they're struggling so much at the moment?
I think they've almost got too much going on. They're trying to bring in too many different styles and different players, and to try and sort of fit the coach's view. Mm-hmm. And it's just not gelling. There's a combination of players here that isn't working particularly well. The benefit they do have, though, is they kind of have an embarrassment of riches in terms of they've got draft picks and they've got really good players that they could nicely put together in a trade package for, I don't know, another big star, maybe one of the ones we've mentioned already, like a Beal or a Zach LaVine, and maybe have a slightly shallower roster, but then get that consistency back in terms of how we're playing, the way we're playing, getting to know each other, and sharing that court time consistently with each other. It's just not clicking, is it? It's just a bit of a mess at the moment.
Yeah, I think that the roster fit is just not ideal, to be honest. And like you said, I think there needs to be a little bit of a kind of structure. They need to find a structure of where the franchise is going and just say to the coach, like, oh no, don't worry, we're going to try and win games. We're going to kind of trade for a better asset and a bigger star. Or they're going to have to say, look, we need to move on from a couple of our older players. We're going to have a tank this season. We're going to have a go next season. I think they need to kind of work out where they are and really focus on it. And it wouldn't surprise me if someone like JJ Redick is a trade kind of candidate for some of these teams. He's not a superstar like in the first segment, but he's a player that I think that many playoff teams could want and maybe isn't quite needed. They need his shooting, but I just don't think they need as many veterans to mix with this team. I'm just not sure it fits the Zion timeline. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. New coach and everything. It's going to be an interesting season for the Pelicans, but they've disappointed me this week and probably all season. Okay, cool. Let's go on to who's your next loser on your list?
Okay, yeah. I do wonder, just as a last thought, if they've just got a load of vets in this season to kind of help develop a couple of the younger players this season, and then they'll sort of gut the roster a little bit next season and get a younger core in and build from there. That could be an option, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
My second loser of the week is, unfortunately, the Miami Heat.
Oh no, not the Heat.
Not the Heat. It's been a really tough week for the Heat. They've had players out left, right, and centre, injuries and COVID concerns, and it's just come in a week where they've had to play the 76ers twice, who they've had some really, really good playoff rivalries with in the past couple of years. And it's not a team they want to be losing to. I mean, the first game they went to overtime and it was a tight game, but the second game they were dominated, 125 to 108. And they had another game cancelled, I believe. Oh, no, they didn't. They beat the Wizards. Oh, that was Saturday before. So since then, they've gone 0-2 in a cancelled game. It's just, I know it's stuff out of their control that's causing this mainly, but it's not been a good week for the Miami Heat.
No, it's not. It's not been a great season overall. It's very busy, isn't it, in and out. They've suffered with a lot of injuries, unfortunately. But they didn't make it on my list, but I can see why they're on yours. And I know Dan from the Miami Heat UK has tweeted out a few times that games they've lost and trying to take some positives from. And if you're a team like the Heat trying to take positives from games, you kind of know the team's struggling, really. So they've got some good young pieces, but I just think injuries and cancellations and scheduling has just not been kind to them. So, yeah, I think that's a good one. So next on my list is the team that's been in our winners segment twice. It's the New York Knickerbockers. Unfortunately, they are back to their ways, Ben. They are back. They've slipped down from 5th or 6th in the East down to 11th. They're on a 5-game losing streak, which going back to what we said about the winners, any kind of long-term losing streaks or winning streaks need to be discussed, I think. And theirs is the longest in the NBA now. They've lost their last 5. They've lost 3 of them, I think, by 15-plus points. I don't know. Alfred Payton's minutes are finally getting cut, and they're finally starting to play that rookie Emmanuel Quickly a little bit more, which is good, because I know when you're winning games, it looks great, but the fact that you're not winning games and you're not developing a couple of your players as much, it's a bit of a worry. Even though I found this funny for a Tibbs team, the top 2 players in minutes played for the whole NBA this year are RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, and they are both 25 minutes ahead of the next person. So.
Wow.
Times that per game, you're talking, 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes extra per game, but that's both of them. So they're both sitting 1 and 2. So that's very Tibbs. And Julius Randle's not quite had the efficiency he had in some of their big wins, which is who Julius Randle is. He's not going to be a 30 and 20 guy efficiently every night. That's just not the sort of player he is. So they've kind of dropped back with a poor week, and they did have a couple of hard games. But even against the Nets, who were playing their B team, I know they had Durant, but after that trade the other night, they were pretty much demolished in terms of players. And the Nets still managed to get a win. It was by 7 points as well. So not even like a 2-point ball game. And I just think that the Knicks are kind of struggling. And they're similar to the Pelicans, but they just want to make sure they take stock of where they are and work out right. Do we want to change the rotation, get the youngsters playing a little bit more or not? But yeah, they were my next loser of the week.
And it's okay. You can say the last team that beat them. It's not illegal to say the Cavs beat them.
Yeah, true. Your boys, the Cavs, won. They lost the Nuggets at the start of the week, which is not really a shocker, is it? But no. Yeah, this week they've lost to the Hornets, which is by 20 points. Lost the Nets by 7 and lost the Cavs by 3, with Drummond having his hell of a performance. I think Reggie Bullock and Mitchell Robinson both started, and I think they scored a combined 8 or 9 points, I read, which is not ideal for your 2 starters. So not a good week for the Knicks.
Shame.
So cool. Who's your next team, actually, on your list?
The final team I've got as my losers. So I've had the Pelicans, I've had the Heat. Mm-hmm. And my final team is the Trailblazers.
It was all going so well.
So frustrating again. Nurkic, injured. Not good. He is so pivotal to that team, and I don't think they realise it until they lose him, just how important he is. He's such an anchor defensively. I said anchor, if that was right. And when you've got a backup that is Enes Kanter, who offensively has a spark, he has energy, but defensively is a ghost. When you compare that to someone like Nurkic, who you could put on the fringe of being in that top echelon of centres at the moment in the league, he leaves such a big hole. So hope it all recovers quickly and he's back in action as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's a broken wrist as well. For anyone anyone doesn't know, so we're not sure how long he's going to be out, but it's not 1 or 2 week sort of spell out, is it? It's going to be a little bit of a mid-term sort of injury, unfortunately.
See him in the playoffs again.
Yeah, he should be back before then, you'd hope. But
yeah,
they did manage to beat the Kings this week, but that's not the most shocking.
I have just found them a little bit streaky this year.
They are.
Even Lillard, I feel like McCollum's been a bit more consistent than Lillard so far. So they're 7-5, which I just expect more from them. I think in my head,
Yeah, you're right. Lillard has had a couple of bad shooting halves, which is very unlike him. And going back to your CJ McCollum comment, I know we said we'll wait a couple of weeks before we talk about the All-Star teams, even though there's no game. But CJ McCollum is up there with top scorers in the league. He leads the league in 3-point field goals made and 3-point field goals attempted. So they've really kind of stretched him out in terms of where he's shooting on the floor. And I just think he's been really impressive. Even field goals, he's second in the league at field goals made as well. So he is right up there from shooting 2 and 3. So I agree with you. I think it's Lillard and the defense that's not been great. As we tried to warn everyone, Robert Covington is not quite the defender that he gets made out to be. And he was never going to turn the Blazers into a top defensive team because they're still struggling on that end of the floor, I think.
Yeah. So fingers crossed, they are a pod sort of diamond for us. Hopefully they improve soon.
Yeah, we both do like them. They're sitting in the middle of the West with the Mavs, and I think both teams, the Mavs and the Blazers, are prime candidates, aren't they? I think to make one more move this season, if they really want to give it a go with the Lakers and Clippers, I think those are the two teams that have got that sort of immediate need with their 2 stars to try and win something. So it wouldn't shock me if Trailblazers or Mavs made a move. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it's definitely on the cards. It seems any player is tradable these days, so watch this space.
Yeah, very true. Cool. So the last team then on my list was the Orlando Magic. Another team we maybe don't talk about as much as others, so it's good that we've spoken about a few teams, but their fans will not be happy they've come up in the loser segment.
You can do with that.
Yeah, well, yeah. So similar to what I said about the Knicks, they're on one of the worst loser streaks in the NBA. They are 4 losses in a row, so they're back down to 6-6 overall across the season. They've dropped from 2nd in the East to 6th in the East, kind of back to where they should be, but they're a 500 team, and if some of the other teams in the East that have been performing under par, I think the Magic could easily see themselves slipping out into the 9, 10, 11 sort of range. And they'd much rather finish in the 6th because 6th is a guaranteed playoff. You don't have to worry about a playing game. So I think any team really in the playoffs, your first aim will be, right, just get in that top 6 to make sure we don't have to go into a playing game. And I think the Magic have not really had a great week. Injury-wise, again, Fultz out for the season. Isaac's had that injury with the ACL. And I can't remember what game it was I watched, but 2 in a row they missed Aaron Gordon for 2 weeks ago. And it just seems that their run of injuries is just a bit of a nightmare at the moment. Yeah, so not good. And I think they lost by 27 to the Boston Celtics maybe last night or the night before. So, yeah, that's not ideal when you're losing to your rivals by nearly 30-point margin. So, yeah, not a great week for the Magic.
No, it's such a shame. That, again, sort of a roster made up of bits and pieces, but seem to be playing so well together. And then those couple of injuries here and there, Markelle Fultz going down, Aaron Gordon is always in and out of the lineup anyway. The sort of the bread and butter of that team in Vucevic, just trying to hold everything together, but it's not quite working as well as it used to. So I'd like to see their roster go back up to full strength because I'd like to see what they could accomplish. Whether that is pushing up to that 5th place maybe, or even staying at that 500 that 500 mark, staying in the 6th position, staying safe in the playoffs. I said this before, I don't really know what they're aiming for because they're never good enough really to pressure the big team, but they're never bad enough to get a good draft pick and build up.
Yeah.
They're just a real middling team.
Yeah, they are. They are the definition of a first playoff round loss, unfortunately. Which is why kind of losing this season might not harm them too much. They got a lot of free agents in the summer as well, so next year they could have a completely different roster. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe your boy Vucevic gets traded because I know you love him.
I do, yeah. I'd like to see him on a winning team.
The Cavs could take him. Just keep them centers and those power forwards high. Get them going.
Oh my God! Imagine that. Starting 5. We'll have McGee at the point. We could have Vucevic at the small forward. Let's have Larry Nance at the shoot guard. Yeah, got Jarrett Allen at power forward. Keep Drummond at the centre. Woof.
Drummond will be carrying the ball up the floor there. You know that. He's the dribbler in the team.
Kevin Love off the bench. Bang. We go.
Sorted. Cavs in 6. Cool. Right. Let's move on from that segment then. So next we're going to try a new sort of talking point. We're going to try and discuss how many teams that we think can win the NBA title with the way they're currently constructed and the way they're currently not necessarily playing right now, but the way we've seen them play throughout the season. So first question is to you, Ben. How many teams are on your list that you think could realistically try and win an NBA title this season?
Realistically,
just a number first.
I've got 5.
5, nice. I have written down 7.
I can be talked into 6, but 5 is my realistic number.
Well, let's start with me guessing your 5 then, and then we'll see what the differences are. So I think you have the Lakers.
Correct.
The Clippers.
Correct.
The Bucks.
Correct.
The Celtics.
Correct.
And the Nets.
Correct. That is my 5.
That's your 5. So I think your 6th is the 76ers.
Correct. Ding, ding, ding. You've won the cuddly toy.
I know you well. Right, so that's 6. I have the same 6. Who do you think I may have as my 7th team?
The Mavs.
There we go. Ding, ding, ding. Cuddly toys all round. Winner, winner. In terms of ranking, what are your opinions of tiers of those teams? I think Lakers and Clippers, and for me, probably the Nets are in their own tier, but I'm sure maybe you think the Bucks might be in that same higher tier with those teams.
For now, and this might hurt a little bit because I know you quite like this Nets roster at the moment.
But they've got, of course, I like this roster. They've got 3 All-Stars.
Lakers and Clippers are that upper echelon at the moment for me, and then
the
Bucks, Boston, and Nets are grouped together. I know that's my 5, and I'm going to split it West and East. But
yeah, two LA teams together at the top, and then the 3 East just below. That makes sense.
The Nets aren't proven. The Bucks are crap in the playoffs, and the Celtics are a bit inconsistent, especially in the playoffs.
Would you say that out of the Eastern teams, though, you are probably actually higher on the Celtics to at least go to the finals at the moment and give those 2 games? Because they've got that consistency that I know you really like.
Yeah, providing everybody's back healthy, I think out of all of these teams we've named, they've got the best coach as well. And I think that makes a massive difference when it does come to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's true. 76 is a little bit further out for you then. Is that just not quite being sure of those 2 stars being able to do it? Because I know Ben Simmons still hasn't really kind of found his feet scoring-wise yet this season.
Yeah, that's it. He's kind of been like flirting with low-level triple-doubles. It's like 10, 10, and 9 or whatever, 10, 10, and 10. And kind of like, well, all right. But it's working. They're winning. So I'm not too worried about it at the moment. It's when they come to playoffs and they're sharing more minutes together and the rotation's smaller, how's that team going to look? Can Embiid actually contribute for a whole playoff series? That's what makes me doubt them slightly, although I'm a lot higher on them this season than I was last year.
Cool. In terms of my tiers then, because I've got 7, I've actually got the Lakers and Nets in their own tier. Just without even seeing them play as a 3, they can score too many points, especially for the other teams in the East, because you have to think about it. They won't play the Lakers till the end, so just getting to that matchup. I think for me, I'll put them in their own tier. I think the Clippers and the Bucks and the Celtics are in another tier for me. And then I've got the 76ers and Mavs in like a 3rd tier just outside. But I really think the Mavs will trade for Victor Oladipo? No, for Bradley Beal or for Zach LaVine. I don't want them to trade for Zach LaVine. I don't like Zach LaVine, as Ben knows. But the rumours are that he's high on the list. And I think they'll trade for a Beal or a Zach LaVine sort of player this season with the cap space they've got coming up next season. Because this year they've got people like Tim Hardaway Jr. on huge expiring contracts. And I think they'll try and take advantage and get one more star. And I just think that'll tip them over the edge. And I think Luka Doncic is a top 3 player in the league. And I just can't not include him on that list because I think they were better than the Clippers last year. They just had that KP injury that me and you spoke about so much in the playoffs. But
Yeah.
I think that them and the 76ers are the same. They need their 2 stars, and they're both a 2-star team that to be fit and healthy for the whole playoffs. And defensively, they need to be really tuned in. The 76ers do that a little bit more often, but at the moment, it's early, and the Mavs are second in the NBA in total defense. So it looks good at the moment, but last night they were awful on defense in 2 of the 4 quarters, and that's kind of the way the Mavs are at the moment. So I think they're a little bit more outside, and I'm biased, but that's my tiers. But you'll be happy to see the Lakers and LeBron at the top of the tiers.
Yes, King of the Castle, King of Castle, King of Castle, la la la.
And on that wonderful sound drop, let's move on from our title-winning teams then to talk about the best upcoming games for the week. First of all, let's talk about the results. So me and Ben are doing a bit of a pick-em at the moment. We pick the games, who's going to win. No spreads involved. Unfortunately, a lot of the games we picked last weekend were cancelled, Ben, but 2 weren't. You picked the Lakers to beat the Rockets, so did I. So we won. We were 1-1 with that. Then last night I had the Mavs, you had the Bucks. The Bucks eked out a win, so you won the week 2-1 total, which takes the season standings to 1-1 at the moment. So I won 1 week, you've won the other. We've only been doing just 2. So now let's pick 3 games each then, and we're going to write down who we think wins each game. So I'll kick us off first of all with my game on Monday night, 12:30. I've got the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Brooklyn Nets on Martin Luther King Day. Good tip-off time, not too late for us. This kind of just made my list for the obvious reasons. I think James Harden might play, and if he doesn't play, then it's probably not going to be as competitive. But I'm going to hope that he does play. And also, it's nice to see Kevin Durant kind of go against Giannis and prove to everyone that he is a much better player than Giannis Antetokounmpo. So that is why they're on my list. What are your thoughts about that game?
Just from the way they're playing at the moment, I'm going to put it out there. It's difficult for me to not see the Bucks win this. I'm going to go straight in with my prediction, especially if Harden doesn't play. If Harden does play, then I think it's a lot more even, because that is a great 2-on-2 matchup, Middleton and Harden and Giannis and Durant. It's just who out of the sort of loose change they've both got left on the rosters can step up to help them.
Yeah, loose change is a good word. Well, I think the Nets play tonight, and there's still a hope. Yeah, they play tonight. Yeah, there's still a hope that they can have Harden for tonight's game. So I'm going to anticipate that he plays versus the Bucks. He also hates Giannis, which I find quite fun. So I'm going to pick against you, just to make it even more fun. I'm going to pick the Nets to win. Cool. Well, who's your first game?
We also know that James Harden, he's feeling great.
Feeling great, yeah. There's a great video online where they ask, how would you describe your conditioning at the moment? Ben sent it to me. The guy asks, how's your conditioning level right now? And James Harden, with his smile on his face that he loves to have, just replies saying, great. So yeah, that made me and Ben laugh. So yeah, go check the video out, and we'll try and see if we can retweet it as well on Twitter. It's funny.
My first game is Monday night, Golden State Lakers. Can Steph shoot them out of another hole? Can big overcome small is essentially what we're going to see here. And they were in our winners of the week, the Lakers. Golden State a bit quieter this week after Steph going crazy the week before. So it'd be interesting to see. I've got the Lakers winning this one. I don't know how you'd fall on this one, because I know you're a big Golden State fan.
Yeah, I picked the Lakers as well because I want the Golden State Warriors to win, but I need to make sure that you don't win another week. So I knew you were going to pick the Lakers, so I'll copy you and go Lakers. But I think it'll be within 10 points sort of game. And then at the moment, either Steph or Wiggins kind of goes off late and they score and they win games or stay in games, or they have this 2-minute spell in the fourth, where they struggle to score and the other team just takes over, because sometimes they can really struggle defensively. And I think that's what will happen this game. I think your boy LeBron and AD just score enough in the fourth to pull out a win. So I've gone Lakers. Cool. Next game then for me is Mavs versus Pacers on Wednesday. This is a midnight tip, so not a bad tip-off time for any Mavs fans. Normally they're all a lot later than that. I'll go straight in with the prediction, even though I'm excited just to watch the Pacers play for a full game as well, and kind of see how they defend Porzingis and Luka, because that's one thing I'm not sure about how they line up with Sabonis and Turner. If they're both on the floor, I think Luka can kind of really target them. And I'll be interested to see how they do that, because in the playoffs, teams will definitely target those two guys defensively. So I'll go with the Mavs win. I just think Porzingis is back now. He's had one good game, one okay game. He looks quite fit, 3-point line, shooting well, and Luka's really found his stroke from three. So I'll go with the Mavs win.
I constantly underestimate this Pacers team, and it's not going to change now. Let's go, Mavs.
I know you so well that I'd written down that you're going to pick Mavs before you said it. So that's the confidence. Who's your next game then?
This is like curveball from our normal sort of big team picks or whatever, but I've got the New Orleans Pelicans, losers of the week, versus the Utah Jazz, winners of the week. Mainly to see if New Orleans can get out of this hole, and it is a sort of marquee matchup. A couple of really good players, obviously, from New Orleans, and Zion and Brandon Ingram. It's always good to watch them play versus Utah. The Spider, Donovan Mitchell, and the Eiffel Tower in Rudy Gobert. Who's going to come out on top of this one?
Well, they played twice this week. So which one are you selecting? Because I don't want you to be cheating my score.
I've gone for Thursday's matchup, if you really want to be specific.
Well, if I'm specific, it's Wednesday, but it's fine. No, technically it's after midnight, so it's Thursday. Who are you going to win then? I imagine you might be going with the Jazz.
Yes, I'm sticking with the Jazz for this. I think they both have some talent on these rosters, but Utah's have been together a season and kind of seem to know what they're doing more than New Orleans at the moment. So it's difficult for me to go the other way.
Cool. Well, I will go the other way because I love Zion Williamson. And it doesn't get spoken about much on this pod, but Ben is a Zion hater. He hates Draymond Green and he hates Zion. So he's got something against chunky men. I'm a bit worried about it, but we won't go on about too much on the pod. But he's not a Zion believer, and I am. So I'll go with Zion and the Pelicans to beat the Jazz. And I think they'll beat them both times this week. Why not? But I'm not going to put that as... That doesn't count in that prediction. They're just going to win this game. But I think they might win both. Cool. Let's go on to my last game then. I've gone with an Eastern Conference matchup. Celtics versus 76ers on Friday evening. This is quite a tough one because the 76ers have been fielding a bit of a mixed squad recently with some of their injuries. I know Ben Simmons and Embiid are back playing, but the Celtics have done well this week, like we spoke about. They're a winner of the week. So I found this prediction my hardest, but I'm going to lean towards the two wings in Tatum and Brown. I'm going to go with the Celtics beating the 76ers on Friday evening. What about you?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because both rosters have had a couple of players out, a couple of injuries here and there. Yeah. So it is nice to see, though, this Celtics team getting back to sort of full strength again. And if it stays the way it currently is, I think the Celtics do pull out the win here. As they are going to find it tricky stopping Embiid, but I really think Tristan Thompson is going to be this is sort of where he's going to be a real asset for them this season, stopping people like him. So, yeah, I'm going to give it to the Celtics as well.
Cool. And your last game of the week?
My last game of the week, again, slight curveball, but
that's good. We do pick a lot of the same teams, don't we? So.
Yeah. It's two very interesting teams in the Nuggets and the Suns.
Nice.
I think this is a really tricky matchup to call. The Nuggets with Jokic, I can't see the Suns being able to stop him very well, but will Murray turn up for this one or not? I don't know. Booker's been playing really well. Chris Paul's been just sort of ticking over in the background, and that roster's gone a little bit quiet recently, but they're still playing good basketball. This is, I think, my hardest one for me to call. But I'm going to go with the Nuggets.
I had you written down for the Suns when I guessed what you were going to say. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the Nuggets. I think that they've really improved this week, especially. They probably feel a bit hard done by to not be on my winners of the week list for how well they've played throughout this week. But yeah, they've really got back into form. Jokic looks really, really good, vying for that sort of MVP candidacy. Murray is still a little bit inconsistent again. He's not found that bubble form on a regular basis yet, but I think defensively as well, they're probably slightly better than the Suns. This will probably be one of the closest games, I imagine. This could be a Mavs Nuggets game where it's like goes to overtime sort of thing, like from last week. But I'll go with the Nuggets as well. I think Jokic should be too good, too many points. So yeah, I'll copy you on that one. So that means of our 6 games, then we have 2 differences where I'm picking the Pelicans to beat the Jazz. You're picking the Jazz. And then I'm picking the Nets to beat the Bucks, and you are going with Giannis and the Bucks. So yeah, 2 differences this week. We'll see who comes out on top.
I'd like to also, as we're coming towards the end of the show, as we did last week, I'd like to end it talking about the Big Penguin. Another big highlight from him this week, if you'd like to go and check it out. Him dribbling out of a double team, finishing with a scoop layup. Genuinely a really good highlight this week. Not him trying to do 6 dribble handoffs, passing it up and falling over and chucking the ball backwards. So have a little look.
By the way, why normally on Basketball Reference people have more than one nickname, but his is just the Big Penguin. Big Penguin. Why is there no other names there?
Just doesn't need another name. It's just it.
An absolute legend, Big Penguin. Might get a tattoo that just says Big Penguin when the Cavs win the East this year.
With 5 centres.
The 5 centres, there we go. Cool. Well, on that Big Penguin note, it's a good time to end the podcast. So thanks as always for listening. Thanks again, Ben, for joining me to talk some rubbish about basketball.
Absolute pleasure.
Make sure everyone checks out our Twitter page @_Hardwood Hoops, where Ben's been pretty good at the moment, doing some good tweets. Big Penguin highlights shall be shared there on a regular basis. And also remember that the Nets are going to beat the Bucks and the Pelicans are going to beat the Jazz. So yeah, see you next week.